Most ambitious men, especially younger men, try to do the impossible when they cannot even do the necessary, and as a result, they fail. And over the last couple of years, just through mostly experience firsthand, I've made the mistake of expecting huge goals, trying to achieve huge goals that were actually beyond my own capabilities at that time, like beyond my own reality of that time. And it's an easy trap to fall into because you look online, you only have to scroll on Instagram or TikTok for 5 minutes if you are someone who is in business or an entrepreneur to see just these crazy goals and these crazy achievements in online business spouted left, right and centre. So it sort of sets that as the standard. Not saying not to strive after those sort of big goals, because I think you should dream big. But simply from my own experience and something that I was literally thinking about or reflecting on yesterday is that a lot of the times we can actually look too far ahead when in that moment of time, that's not what you need to do. You need to think about a closer timeline. And if you're not doing the very basics of what you need to do in order to get to from 0 to 1, then how do you think you're going to be able to go from 1 to 100? And a lot of the time, without going 0 to 1, you'll be trying to go from 0 to 100 anyway. Like last year, for example, in my business, I was basically making everything complex for no reason. And literally, it was almost like self-sabotage. Everything I was doing, I was trying to do these big things and make things super complex. And I just added weight to the business, slowed it down. And as a result, we didn't make as much progress as when we just sort of simplified things this year and just actually started removing stuff and just trying to focus on the foundations, getting the basics right. I mean, you look at Elon Musk, like obviously huge billionaire, an incredible operator when it comes to business and efficiency and growing and all that sort of stuff. And he often talks about working from first principles thinking, where you start from the very basics and you work your way up. I think it's Peter Thiel who talks about, I think he wrote a book on 0 to 1 as an entrepreneur. My dad, who when I used to play football was like my biggest supporter on the touchline, on the sideline. And whenever I was having a bad game or whenever I was sort of playing and then all of a sudden just got into a bit of a rut, he would call me to the side or whatever. But he would basically just say, start or go back to the basics. And like, I remember quite a few times at half time, if I was having a shoddy game, I was up front, striker. If I had been missing a few chances or whatever, or just not got my head screwed on, he'd pull me aside at half time and basically just tell me to go back to the very foundations of what you get taught in football when you're like under 7s or under 8s. For example, like if I was through on goal, he would just take the complexity away from that scenario and just literally tell me, just pass the ball into the net like you'd be passing it to a player, that sort of stuff. And I think that applies to everything in life. Like, I've been through quite a few ruts. Obviously, it's never going to be smooth sailing all the time. Over the last 2 years, I've had periods of momentum, periods of like growth, periods of stagnation where I fall off the horse and you go back into like bad habits that hold yourself back, hold the business back. And especially when you're in that type of rut, when you're trying to run a business or grow a business, obviously in a rut in business, but also in personal sort of stuff, I always just reset by just getting the basics right. Like literally last week, my brother and I, my business partner, we were basically going through a bit of a rough patch. Like, we just sort of collected ourselves, had a little think about what had been going wrong, and then we just started from basics again. From the simplicity of get up at the time you're going to get up, go on a run, stuff like that's going to get you mentally like back into shape, if that makes sense. Going on a run, exercising, just ripping everything out of your calendar and just having 1 to 3 main things that you have to get done today, and just cancelling and deleting everything else, just making things so simple. So if you are trying to grow a business, if you are in a rut within your business, or you've just fallen into that sort of trough in terms of like your habits and everything like that, just start from 0 to 1. Because if you can do the basics, then you can start thinking about the bigger goals and the bigger aspirations. I also heard something the other day. I think it was saying something like, in order to actually achieve the impossible, you must first do what is necessary, then stretch to what is possible, and suddenly when you're doing those 2 things consistently, you are doing what most people can never do, which is impossible. So yeah, that's the lesson from today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something from this. If you are going through a rut, or you're basically just making everything too complex, start from the basics and just whittle everything down and just go from 0 to 1. Thank you for watching.